And in this, you after the third year, do you get a degree, or you get a degree only after 5 years?
5 years. You have a choice to opt for a single degree as well, but 99% of the students don't prefer to do so.
Can you also go from physics to engineering in the fourth year?
In the fourth year,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, sir. We have to choose an engineering degree in the second year. That's about it.
Okay.
So let's begin. Hello, guys. Today is the second lecture of the QSTP lecture series. Our chief guest for today is Mr. Amit Pradhan. Amit sir is the vice chairman of the Runaya Group, which is a sustainable technologies company creating innovative solutions in the resources sector. Sir is also an ex-president and ex-CEO of the Sesa Goa Limited company and has worked there for 25 years. Sesa Goa is the top iron ore company in all of Goa. With an amazing career like this, Sir also boasts an MSc Physics degree from IIT Delhi. Sir, firstly, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of BITS.
Thank you, Omkar. Thank you. Pleasure to be with all of you. I'd like to know how many people are there today. How many people are listening to us? Is there a way that you can find out? No. That's not possible, is it?
It's not yet. I'm from Prakhar. Yeah, no, he's the one streaming.
All right.
So.
Yes. Great. So, welcome to all of you, the young students of BITS Pilani Goa. And it's a pleasure of mine to speak to you all. I would just like to start off by saying that I would say that you got about 30,000 days to live. Okay, out of which 10,000 days you've already lived. Right. So another 10,000 days is the most important period as you pass out. And the last of the 10,000 days would be, retired life, and you'd like to do things which are more passionate to you. So in those, as you pass, I mean, the main purpose of this talk of mine is basically to give you a sense of what I have been doing and how the future is changing and what are the challenges and opportunities available for the young guys who pass out in the next few years. So just to give you a very brief introduction about myself, I'm currently 67 years old, and I started my schooling in Delhi. I'm actually, in more ways than others, a Delhiite. So I did my schooling in Delhi from a school which was born in the same year as I was born. It's quite famous now. It's called Springdale School. We had an Irish principal. She was the founder of the school. She's still alive at the age of 96, and she's been awarded the Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan. An Irish lady got married to a Punjabi gentleman. Her name is Rajni Kumar, and she is an educationist in many ways. So that was, in my time, we used to do class 11. It was All India High Secondary that I did. And then I joined, I had a fascination for physics as well as for chemistry and maths. And therefore, I decided to get into physics. My father was also a physicist. He was in wireless, MSc Physics and wireless way back. God knows which year, probably passed out in 19, I would say 50s, 51, and so that was so I got my initial learnings on physics from my father. He made the subject very interesting for me. So as in school, I was lucky to have a class teacher in school who actually wrote the textbook on physics that was being used. So, it was the dissemination of knowledge was good. It made my interest, soar in this subject. Of course, maths was a favorite, and so was chemistry. In fact, I had made a small lab for myself in my home in Delhi. But then, as I went to college, so I had a very high percentage in physics. I was third in all India in physics, and I joined St. Stephen's College. St. Stephen's College, there were about 30 students in physics, and all of them were very, very high rankers from the prestigious schools all over India. We had students from St. Columbus, Delhi, Modern School, Delhi, La Martiniere, Lucknow. We also had students from, what shall I say, my school. There were two boys, and it was an all boys college. And there is a little snob value attached to St. Stephen's, so it was good to be there. There's nothing great about the college as such in terms of when I compare my stay in St. Stephen's to my post graduation at IIT Delhi. So in terms of facilities, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the quality of the faculty, there's nothing great in college. But what differentiates is the peer pressure, is the kind of interactions, and I think at that age one is very impressionistic, and therefore you tend to pick up everything from your friends. And if you are in a good circle of friends and you are talking stuff which appeals your passion, then you would pick that up. And that's what happened in my case. So first year was very good. Second year, one became a senior, started ragging people. It was very good ragging. And ragging was a pleasurable activity in college. We were looking forward as freshers. We also look forward to our ragging sessions because Stephens has a little legacy, and that was when you are ragged, the senior obviously once he says that I am, you remember my name and you remember the course that I'm doing, then he will take you out for a small treat, and that was we were always looking forward to that. So it was a very pleasurable activity in college. So in second year and third year, uh, we got into the crowd and we became seniors. And of course, along with that, so a few bad habits got picked up. One side, smoking in college, because that was a fad in those days. 70s, 70, 72. This was the time when the Marxist movement had picked up quite a bit, and there was a lot of Marxism being talked about. People used to wear jeans and kurtas and roam around with jholas, carrying books. So that was the kind of stuff. But all the same, as a result of these interactions, the confidence level remains very high. You get the confidence to speak on any forum on any subject because you're involved with activities besides academics, and that's a very important part of growing up in college. As long as you are involved with every activity, whether it's sports or dramatics or plays or photography or anything else, that kind of exposure and meeting people, leading a group of people or being a part of a group is very important. And that is something which would go a long way in your career. Then came my final year results, and I was not very keen to continue physics, and I wanted actually to get into economics in college. I wanted to be in college, but I had lost interest in physics. And my dad told me that, look, if you're going to go to economics, which is a good combination for people to take civil services exam, or go get into history, it was a good combination. But then he said you would be a half physicist and a half economist, and you choose. Maybe if you do a change in place, then you would revive your interest. So I told myself that if I still have the interest and the caliber to do physics, I would take the IIT entrance. We had an entrance for the MSc program. I said I would take the entrance without any studies, and I did that. I qualified well, and I joined IIT. And IIT was a revelation, I would say, in the sense that there was a lot of applied work. There was a lot of good labs. I remember I designed a flat plate solar collector with an efficiency of 99% in the School of Solar Energy at that time. And that was possible because the lab facilities were good. So we did that. Even in IIT, when you go and stay in a hostel, I remember my dad telling me that hostel is very essential in life because it helps you to become independent in thought. But it is a place where you can make or break your career. And that's an important point to remember. Again, if you're serious about work and you're serious about studies at the same time, exposing yourself to other than academic activities, the so-called extracurricular activities. But in many cases, extracurricular activities take precedence over your academic pursuits that you have, and that is sometimes the comes as a bad experience, in academics. So need to be careful about that. Continue to remain focused on academics and develop your personality by getting involved in other activities. Then, of course, post my graduation, I took the competitive exams and I got into Steel Authority as a management trainee there, which was a very, very interesting program. It was a large competition. About 120,000 people took that exam.
So was your physics degree, did it help you in this Steel Authority program?
Oh yes, a lot. Because what physics teaches you is to understand fundamentally every process,
Yeah.
And as long as your basics are strong in physics, it's the mother of all engineering, and especially for engineers, must strengthen physics to become a good engineer. And I've noticed that in life when I was heading the pig iron business of Sesa Goa, which is a metallurgical process. There were a lot of metallurgical engineers, postgraduates, MTech in metallurgy had fundamental issues, on certain things. Metallurgy wise, they were good, but there are various situations that you have in an operating plant. For instance, if you have a breakdown of an equipment, you have a hot metal crane, and suppose the shaft of the crane breaks down. Now, what will happen? Somebody will say, "I've taken this shaft and I sent it for a microstructure test, and I find that there was a problem on the material of construction." Now, what is missed out is that there is something called fatigue that sets in. Every equipment is designed for a certain number of load cycles, right?
Yeah.
So if the load cycles have exceeded, this is the fundamental thing that people miss out sometimes. They go on to something which is completely tangential to the main issue. So important, just to come back to the point, important thing is, remember, physics is fundamentally, you should be strong. I believe a physicist can do anything. He can be, other than probably being an artist, but you could, an artist is some innate talent that a person might have. But otherwise, if you are a physicist, you could be good at many things. You could be good at cooking. You could be good at driving. You could be good in engineering. You could be doing good in business. You could also be doing very well in finance. So,
Finance?
Yes, very much.
Oh.
Finance is, in my view, will get replaced by the computer. There will be no finance managers required to produce, a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet, or understand a profit and loss. So there would be analysts sitting down and looking at technical issues that caused a balance sheet to go off from the budgeted balance sheet.
Oh.
Okay. Because at the end of it, once you have an ERP which runs the entire enterprise, at least in Vedanta, what we are doing, and we are achieving 100% automation on MIS, on financial reports. So everything must come out from the ERP. There is no sitting down and writing what is your cost of production, what is the EBITDA, what is the revenue, what is the free cash flow coming out, okay, what are the interests? Everything comes out from the ERP system.
Oh.
If that comes out, then the only requirement of a chartered accountant is perhaps to do treasury functions, is to get money, do banking functions, to get money for the organization to run that. So anyway, just coming back to physics is important, and that I mean, I'm a little biased in that view, but I'm telling you out of an experience of having worked with a lot of engineers. I understand you'll be able to understand drawings, structural, civil. You'll understand specs, required for operating plants, operating practices. So, and it also depends. It also depends on the attitude the person has. The approach that the person takes. It definitely supports all these attitudes, but it is not just that every physicist would be good. It's just that anybody else could also be equally good as a physicist. But if you have physics and you have the passions like everybody else, then perhaps you would be able to, score better and look at things more logically and analytically. So that is it. After that, with Steel Authority, I did a management training program for 1.5 years, which was very interesting, and that was it was perhaps better than a management course from the IIMs or any of those kinds.
Oh.
Yeah, but that because at that time, Steel Authority wanted to form an Indian steel service similar to the Indian Administrative Service or Indian Civil Services,
Oh.
but it didn't happen. You know, it didn't happen. They had to spend a lot on each management trainee, and it was overshooting their budget. So they did it for 1 year. My batch of 77 produced the civil services topper of 79, plus about 11 other boys and girls left SAIL and joined the IS and IFS services. So that was so in SAIL. Once you get into SAIL, the training period was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I still have my friends, which are part of an extended family for me, who are from SAIL. They've all done very well in life. It was probably the most promising batch of 1977 of management trainees. And they retired as directors on SAIL or directors of other companies. Some of them became entrepreneurs. Some of them joined the foreign services, became ambassadors. So invariably, all of them did very well. I mean, without exception, I would say everybody did very well. I decided to quit SAIL because I found that it was more of a government kind of a job where talent was, I was being recognized for talent, but I was still standing in a queue. And, there is a seniority thing which is there, and you get promoted, when your turn comes. And I then wanted to try the private sector. So I got into Sesa Goa. And fortunately for me, Sesa Goa at that time had thought about diversifying from iron ore. One of my boss at that time was Mr. Dilima, who was also the director of the Goa Institute of Management post-retirement. He's the man who was responsible for constructing the Goa Institute of Management. So I joined him, and just with two other people, one engineer whom I recruited and my secretary, we set up the first mini blast furnace in India to start the secondary pig iron business. Now, pig iron is made out of blast furnaces through the blast furnace route. It is made by all integrated steel plants. But because steel plants want to convert iron into steel, they only take out pig iron if they have a problem. If they have a problem in the steel side, if they have a problem on the rolling side, or they have a problem in the SMS, then only they take it out and take out pig iron and sell it in the market. That's steel grade pig iron. From day one, we decided that we will make special pig iron, which will be catering to the foundry industry. So unlike steel, which was, or unlike pig iron, which everybody else would treat as a commodity, we decided to treat it as a product.
Separate product, yeah.
Yeah. So we would actually manufacture pig iron with varying percentages of silicon, with varying percentages of sulfur, phosphorus, manganese, to meet the specific requirement of a foundry. And that way, I said it's classified as a product and not as a commodity. So we were the first people in India to start this. We entered into a technology collaboration with a company in Brazil, which was called Quark Tecnologica Sideruca, called KTS in short. While we were halfway through the project, Tata Steel got into a collaboration with Quark, and a company called Tata Quark was created to provide consultancy for pig iron producers. So with the commissioning of our pig iron plant, there was a mushrooming effect in India. There were more than 30 pig iron producers that came up in a period of the next 5-6 years.
So you created a category on your own, basically.
Yeah, so this was special foundry grade product. In fact, low sulfur, low phos, high silicon, where silicon varying from 1.5 to 2.5, 2.75.
Mm.
And so this was, we created this pig iron category. We were the pioneers in that in Sesa. It was in the company called Sesa Industries Limited. And we were using coke. Every pig iron producer uses coke as a reductant. So to reduce iron ore to iron, you will have to use a carbon bearing material. Blast furnaces normally use coke, and coke was being imported. It was not something which we had at that time. So this is starting sometime in March '92.
Mm-hmm.
So in January '90, I joined Sesa Goa. In March '92, we commissioned the first blast furnace, the mini blast furnace, and we were importing coke from Australia from a company called Kembla Coal and Coke. And during this process, we realized that it is better to go backward integrate ourselves and put up a coke plant.
Oh. Mm.
So I went down to Australia, and along with two other people, my chief design manager and one of the production managers designated for the coke plant. We entered into a joint venture with Kembla Coal and Coke, and a new company called Sesa Kembla Coke Company was formed. So we went down to take the drawings and study the plant and come and replicate it in Goa. The good thing about this plant was that in Australia, in a place called Illawarra, there are two coke plants in Illawarra and another place in Corrimal in New South Wales, Wollongong district. These people were operating a coke plant right in the middle of a city, which is very well inhabited. Mm-hmm. And as you know, coke is one of the most polluting industries. It is one of the most polluting industries because the coke plant, which is typically seen in integrated steel plants, are the vertical coke ovens, about anywhere between 5.5 to 7 meters high, and they emit byproduct. They emit unburnt hydrocarbons.
Oh.
So you're using coking coal to convert that into coke.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're doing the carbonization process, there are hydrocarbons coming out. Mm-hmm. Therefore, every coke plant in an integrated steel plant has an attached byproduct plant. So these hydrocarbons are captured and they're converted into toluene, benzene, pitch, or things like that, which are byproducts from a coke plant. Now, this was a completely different technology. And, in this technology, the coke ovens are under a negative pressure.
Okay.
Which means once you put the coal in, the air is sucked inside the coke ovens.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because you're creating a draft by connecting the coke ovens through a common flue tunnel to a stack. The stack is about 35, 40 meters high. Mm-hmm. And that natural draft gets created, and therefore there is an automatic suction which will never fail. It's not an ID fan which is creating a suction. It is a suction created by a stack.
Difference of pressure.
Yeah, it's a stack which is creating the suction connected, mm-hmm. and all the ovens are connected through a common flue, which is connected to the stack. So what happens is that all the air is sucked in through the windows on the doors. The coke starts burning, coal starts burning. After 48 hours, it gets converted into coke. And there is not a single fugitive emission taking place in the workplace area.
Wow.
So this was a very good technology. It was traditionally called the beehive technology, but this is a much improved version of the beehive technology. So we took this technology and we constructed the coke plant at Amona, at Navalem, actually, adjacent to our pig iron plant. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, there was a problem in the transfer of technology, and The Australians who were actually physically here in Goa helping us construct the plant took one very, very fundamentally wrong decision. The bottom of the coke oven, the foundation of the coke oven in Australia uh, had something called castable. Castable is a refractory material,
Mhm.
high alumina refractory material, which is put on which the coke oven is constructed. Now, because the coke oven goes into a very high temperature, there is an expansion and a contraction taking place. The expansion when the coke is ready, and when you push out the coke for quenching it, you open both the doors, so there's air which gets in and it cools down the coke ovens to some extent.
Contraction occurs, yeah.
So there is a contraction which occurs.
Mhm.
As a result, there is a physical movement of the coke ovens. And that determines the life of the refractory. The coke ovens is made out of refractory bricks completely.
Mhm.
So they decided to, put a layer of sand and in the foundation of the coke ovens. And this sand that they took was tested by them. They took it to Australia, they tested it, but they decided to use the wrong quality sand. They took the sand from the Goa beaches.
Oh.
If they use, you see, sand is a good concept by per se, because sand is, if you use pure silica, you use quartzite. Okay. Quartzite has a very high temperature, high melting point, so it would not melt. If you take sand from the river Ganges, or you take sand from the neighboring state where you have this a river, Kali Nadi, where you have Londa Junction, where you have near Londa,
Mhm.
that land, that is river sand. That doesn't have fusible materials in it. But the beach sand has got all these fusible materials,
Oh.
like seashells and all that. So when the ovens were heated, and again this is physics, as the isotherm gets established, the heat will continue to flow from a higher temperature to a lower temperature.
Hmm.
And till such time the heat stops flowing when the thermal equilibrium is reached. Now, in the process, the sand was getting heated up, but because it had fusible materials or impurities, those melted, and that started creating voids.
Oh.
And as the voids got created, the sand above it would go and settle into that. And slowly, slowly, over a period of 6 months, the bottom floor of the ovens was slowly settling down.
Mhm.
We were monitoring that, and we found that the settlement of the coke oven floor took place by almost 800 millimeters.
Oh, Papre.
Every time it would settle, we would build it up. But the construction, the design of the arches was such that none of the arches collapsed. The top floor would cave in, they would build up the top floor, but it reduced the working volume of the oven. Right.
Oh.
And that took us to do some designing. I went down to IIT Bombay, engaged a few people, I did that, asked them to do some studies of heat transfer, and we came up with a design where we constructed a air tunnel below the oven floor. Now,
Insulator.
so air acts as an insulating medium, and the air was taking away the heat, and that heat we wanted to put it back into the ovens.
Okay.
So that did a dual purpose. A, it stopped the transfer of heat to the bottom, and the air which was going back into the ovens would help in improving the productivity of the ovens.
Mhm.
So that design was made by our team internally in Sesa Goa. We had a very competent team, and then we settled out with Kemla. They lost their equity. They had a 40% equity share in the joint venture company. They lost that, and then it became only 100% owned by Sesa Goa. We got the master license on the technology. as a result of this settlement.
Mhm.
And the oven design was done by us with the help of IIT Bombay, and then we patented that design.
Okay. Huh.
So today, Sesa's waste heat recovery technology is a patented technology. We are the owners of the technology in Sesa Goa. And then we reconstructed all the 84 ovens. We broke down and reconstructed all the 84 ovens.
Mhm.
That's how the course. So it was a very interesting journey. It involved, it, for me, it involved technology transfer. It involved project execution. It
Crisis
involved
management.
it involved a situation which we faced about the technology not working well for a very small, very fundamentally small reason, which was the sand quality. Then it involved getting a new design, improving upon the old design as a result of that, and patenting that. In all these activities, I was leading all these activities. And then, of course, the coke ovens came up. They worked beautifully. They still stand there at Navalim, Amona. When you pass through that area, you would see the ovens working. Much later, Sesa was an Italian company. You know, it was born in 1955, and in 1997, the Italian shareholding was bought over by Mitsui of Japan. So we became a 51% company owned by Mitsui and 49% owned by the Indian public and financial institutions, of course. So Mitsui, being a trading company, one of the largest companies in the world, but it was basically in trading, was a little circumspect, you know, in technology related matters. They would bring a Japanese expert, and they were very, very cautious in approving capex programs and all. But we convinced them, and once we showed them, we did it in batches. We first broke down 21 ovens, and when they were convinced that it is working well, then they said, all right, let's go ahead with the balance 84. Then came the very, very interesting part of my career was, as a result of the complete carbonization of coal that takes place in the coke ovens, the gas that comes out from the stack is got very high temperature. It's got a latent heat, but it doesn't have sensible heat. That means it's got no calorific value. You cannot burn it.
Yes.
But because it is very high temperature, it is waste heat that can be recovered. So we kept telling Mitsui that we should put up a power plant, a waste heat recovery power plant. And I had actually been, this was when was it? It was, yeah. I actually went on to the board of Sesa Goa in 2000. And that 2000 was when we started this drive of trying to put up a waste heat recovery power plant to utilize the waste heat of the coke ovens.
Okay.
Additionally, in the meanwhile, we had put up a second blast furnace. So we had blast furnace gas, which is used as a primary fuel in the furnace operations, right? But there was excess gas that was being flared off. So we wanted to bring both the gases together into a waste heat recovery boiler and generate power.
Oh.
That was a very unique and first time in the world that somebody was using coke oven flue gases and blast furnace gases to generate power. Mitsui was not very keen to fund that project for us. And these are situations which you will face in your working life, where you have an idea, you're passionate about it, you want to drive it, but you face many stumbling blocks. Why I'm telling you this is exactly the reason. If you're passionately about pushing that program, you'll keep finding ways and means of how to finally get a yes from the shareholders. But you've got to be passionate. everybody who's going to put the money would see your passion and see how you're going to actually, whether you're actually going to succeed in that endeavor of yours. So what happens is that we put it up. We said we want to put it up. Mitsui did all kinds of risk analysis. They said, no, not possible. Too many risks in the business. If you supply power to the neighboring village and there is an outage in the power plant, the villagers will come and strike. That will affect your business. That will affect our iron ore business.
Mm-hmm.
The iron ore business was the mainstay of Sesa Goa at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we kept saying that we will not give, finally we gave them all solutions. We said we're not going to supply directly power to the village. After consuming power internally, meeting our internal demand, we will supply power to the grid.
Okay.
Okay. So that is how things started getting evolved. But the important point here is that at the board level, I submitted my proposals several times to the board. For some reason or the other, the board was not approving it. Twice I submitted to the board and the board did not approve it. I came back dejected, but I did not lose hope. Now, at that time, the Kyoto Protocol had been signed and UNFCCC had started a program of carbon credits.
Oh.
So this project, I foresaw that as a clean development mechanism project, which is called a CDM project. And we told Mitsui that this is a CDM project and we will earn carbon credits out of it. That suddenly changed the mindset of Mitsui, because Mitsui was driving a carbon neutrality program at the group level. As a subsidiary of Mitsui, we were adding to that. We would be the first company in India to get a CDM registered project.
Oh, what does group level mean, sir? I didn't understand that point.
So group, when I say Mitsui as a group, so Mitsui is a very large company based out of Japan, has got multiple investments in mining, in all kinds. You take the business, you name the business, they are there. Whether it is cosmetics, whether it is space, whether it is iron ore, aluminium, copper, gold, everything. You name it and it's there. So they're a very large company, but their basic model is what the Japanese called as Sogo Sosho, which is basically trading. Japanese steel mills, never would buy directly. All the iron ore that was being sold from Goa to Japan was sold through these trading houses. Mitsui was our trading partner, Sesa Goa's trading partner. So all the sales that were being made by Sesa Goa to Japanese steel mills, whether it was Kobe Steel or Nippon Steel or others, was going through Mitsui.
Oh.
Similarly, the other mining companies had other trading houses with them. So when Mitsui became the owners at a group level, they had committed to achieve certain level of carbon emissions at the group level. And Sesa Goa was a subsidiary of Mitsui. So if we were able to reduce our carbon footprint, that would add to Mitsui's carbon reduction program.
Okay, yeah. That's how you convinced them.
That's how the whole mindset got changed. And then we said we don't want any money from Mitsui. So I configured the whole project on a build, own, operate basis. I don't know whether you people understand build, own, operate. Somebody else builds for you, he owns it, and he operates it for you. You are facilitating and you are the fuel supplier.
Achha.
So I got a company, Videocon Industries, which built the plant, They owned the plant and they operated the plant. I entered into an agreement with them to supply heat energy from my coke ovens and blast furnace gas.
You can just supply energy. Oh,
Yes.
heat energy. I didn't know this. Wow.
So that was the novel part of the whole thing. And normally, so they put up the power plant. The first 30 megawatt power plant that was put up in Amona was put up by Videocon, utilizing the waste heat from our coke ovens and utilizing the blast furnace gas from our blast furnaces.
Oh.
Right. So they were generating steam, and that was driving a steam turbine, and that was generating 30 megawatts.
Okay.
This 30 megawatts, certain amount of that was coming to Sesa Goa free of cost, and the balance was being sent to the grid. So the financial model that was made here. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Technically, if you are good, if you understand the intricacies of how the business has to be structured, it would help you in making a sound financial model. So this financial model, I just want to touch upon in just 2 minutes. This financial model was such. So now just imagine that you are investing 125 crores of rupees to put up a power plant, and I am the supplier of gases to you, heat energy to you. What would you say? You would say that there is a risk to my investment if you don't supply me the gas.
Yes.
So therefore, they say that I will have to use some alternate fuel. Also, in the event of you're not supplying me the gas, I cannot shut down my plant. I have to use some alternate fuel and run the plant. And the cost of that fuel will have to be recovered from you.
Yeah.
So the question is, are you going to take that risk? First of all, you cannot use coal in Goa. Coal is banned. Therefore, you don't have any thermal power plants in Goa. Right? You don't have any fossil fuel-based power plants in Goa because emissions from a coal-based power plant are too high and you will not get an environmental clearance.
Yes.
So now imagine you are putting 125 crores and I'm saying I'm going to give you gas. Please go ahead and put up the plant. As you would obviously ask me, these are my risks. You compensate me for risks. Now you got to capture that into an agreement. First of all, you got to convince him that, all right, this is how we will address the risk. Secondly, you've got to convince him that really the risks are not there. It's hypothetical. So we convinced Videocon that we have been operating these plants for the last 15 years and we've never shut down the plant. The reason why these risks arise is because the fuel is the main starting point, and the risk in my business of pig iron and coke directly affects the power company.
Yes.
So if tomorrow the pig iron business collapses globally and pig iron prices crash, and I don't want to, then I can't produce pig iron. So I'll not have blast furnace gas. And if I don't produce pig iron, there's no need for me to produce coke either.
Yeah, and then you won't give them the fuel which is generated from your heat.
Yes, so that is the biggest risk. So we then structured the financial model that, all right, if I have got 100 units of energy, I'm guaranteeing to you 70 units of energy on a minimum take or pay obligation. That means if I don't give you that 70 units of energy, then I pay the cost for that.
Okay.
But that is guaranteed on an annual basis.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, sir, whether is there a contract, and if there's a contract, then how many years does it last between a supplier and an average contract?
So it depends. Normally, you will have a contract in which the investment payback takes place. Okay. So if you invested 125 crores and you made a financial model where after taking care of the debt financing, the interest on the debt, and the earnings from the plant, you are able to recover your capital cost and you are able to make a profit. Normally, in 7 years' time, the fixed cost gets recovered. That's how normally in the power plant business, the models get structured. So normally contracts are there for about 15 years. This contract was there for 15 years with a provision to extend it by another 5 years.
Okay.
So that's how we put it up. We ran it successfully. So, and there was a point here where I told Videocon that, look, you can earn carbon credits for this.
Yeah, you can.
And therefore, you increase the price for the energy that I supply to you. Because you will earn over and above this model, you will potentially earn some value from sale of carbon credits. They said, no, we are not interested. We don't think we want to go by that route. So we put in a condition in the project saying that all the carbon credit benefits will come to Sesa. You will do the compliance. And the cost for all the compliance will be taken care by us.
Achha.
So there is a project now, if you can go on to the UNFCCC website, UNFCCC website. I think the project number is 535. Just type, go to the tab of CDM and type Sesa Waste Heat Recovery Power Plant Project.
Okay.
You will get the full history of how this project was evolved, what problems it faced, and how the UN approved this project as a CDM project. And consequent to that approval, every year we went through a verification process by a third party and we earned carbon credits.
Oh.
Those carbon credits we sold at almost 13 euros per carbon credit. We earned about 125,000 carbon credits every year till 2012. So these are things which sort of, actually kept me back in Sesa. And the kind of freedom that one got in Sesa to work on, to push your ideas, to work on projects. And fortunately, since I had gone on to the board level, I remained in the board till I retired from 2000 to 2015. I was able to push the projects and actually execute them and give the returns to the company. And not only just give the returns to the company, make these as landmark products with a lot of recognition in the industry. So ours was the first CDM project which was approved as a waste heat energy power plant project. And it is the first time that the power company did not get the carbon credits, but a fuel supplier was getting the carbon credit. So it's unique in many ways. I remember I was called by the Bombay Chamber of Commerce to talk on this. It's so passionate for me and that gave me the greatest satisfaction that once we did that. But Sesa was is a wonderful company even now. It was a great company. It was the value that we created, the directors of the company created, was close to $1 billion. And that $1 billion was paid by Vedanta in 2007 to buy out the 51% equity from Mitsui.
Okay.
So I worked with the Italian management, I worked with the Japanese management, and then I worked with the Vedanta management. Now that was a journey in Vedanta and in Sesa Goa, but Vedanta brought in absolutely new ideas. And they were very, very, very disruptive ideas and very growth-oriented ideas. And that is a difference. I remember the chairman, Anil Agarwal, calling us over before the takeover. And he told us that I am paying $1 billion because this value has been created by you people, the directors on the board of Sesa Goa. Right? This has been created by you people. There is no owner of Sesa Goa.
Oh, yeah, there's a board.
There's a completely professional company. It is a board-run company. And this value that has been created for which I have paid $1 billion to Mitsui You guys must think of how you can give my money back and perhaps give me a $2 billion back.
Hmm.
Fortunately, after that, we saw a huge increase in commodity prices, and iron ore prices shot through the roof. There were some deals which were done even at 160, $170 a ton, and Sesa actually gave a profit of $2 billion. In the year I think 2009, 10 or 10,
Wow.
11. It was a great period for Sesa. We and Vedanta, I would say to the credit of Vedanta's management, I would say the promoters of Vedanta, Mr. Anil Agarwal, Naveen Agarwal, they saw that this company had a different DNA.
Hmm.
Sesa had a different DNA, which was which was while it had huge amount of polish, it had huge amount of competency. There was a lot of diligence in the people, simple, hardworking people.
And so still they didn't let go of the principle of, being environment friendly, I feel. Am I right to say that?
Yes, yes. We are the only mining company in India which was focused on environment and ecology protection right from the Italian time. If
Also,
you go to Sankli, where we closed our mine, there is a proper process to close a mine because you dig out pits to reach out to the ore body.
mhm.
So several pits are made, and you keep on excavating. You can go many meters below mean sea level. But then after the ore is exhausted, you've got to reclaim the mine. And that is what Sesa has done in every mine they operated. In Sirsai, in Sankli, they closed the mine, they developed it into a beautiful forest, and it is actually a tourist resort now. Sankli, if you want to see, I can organize a trip of your people to Sankli. Go have a look at it. How beautifully Sesa has closed the mine and restored ecology and environment. It's more beautiful than what it originally was before mining happened there. That was the greatness of Sesa. It was hugely conscious about the environment. But as you pushed for tons, you wanted to export 25 million tons out of Goa. Then the infrastructure, you're moving more trucks on the road, you're moving more trucks to the loading bandar, you're moving more barges onto the port. Now all that came under pressure. That system came under pressure. At the same time, because of the boom in the iron ore prices, every mining company started doing that. That's where it it got the attention of some NGOs, and ultimately, as you know, mining got closed in Goa, and it remains closed even now. It's most likely to open only after an auction.
okay.
So that's a very complicated subject, and I would not delve into it at this. It's very difficult for young people, fourth year, third year, fourth year people to really grasp it. But the fact remains, sustainable mining was being done by, if by anybody, it was being done by Sesa.
Wow.
And it is because it was the culture. It was the culture of this company because of the European effect that we were having. The Italians. When I joined the company, Mr. Girardi was the managing director. Every day he would go to the mine, and every day he would come to the pig iron plant, which was under construction at that time. So there was a huge amount of personal involvement for the Italian people, and that DNA actually remained even after the Italians left, and
Yeah.
that was the strongest point of Sesa. So Vedanta realized that, and Vedanta said, "This is a great company, and we must push." Unfortunately, because of the ban in mining for various reasons, our iron ore business came down. But I went into a phase where I decided to expand the pig iron business by putting a third and a bigger blast furnace.
Acha.
So I decided to put up a third blast furnace, a new coke oven plant, a new power plant, and we we said we'll do further backward integration. So we put up a sinter plant. Why we put up a sinter plant is because iron ore in the blast furnace is required in lumpy form. You can't put fines into the blast furnace.
Mhm.
See, it's a pressurized vessel. You're blowing hot air at some pressure, so at 1.5, 2.5 kgs per centimeter square is the pressure that you're pushing the air into it. So the fines would just flow out.
Yeah.
Therefore, all blast furnaces require either lumps or pellets or sinter feed. Now, lumpy ore is a little scarce commodity. Run of the mine, you'll probably get 10 to 15% lumpy ore, but you will get largely fines. And if you can use those fines and convert it into sinter feed, then you've actually got a huge raw material security.
Mhm.
So that's what we did, and we put up this plant. Today, that plant is seeing us through. We are the largest producers of pig iron in the
Wow.
country, with fully backward integrated, with the lowest cost. We are in the lowest cost curve. I would probably say uh, on the lowest decile of the cost curve
Wow.
globally.
Sir, that is really appreciable, of Sesa to do all this while maintaining the environment, being at the lowest end of the cost curve is a really big achievement. But as we speak, an hour has passed and it was really exciting to talk to you. And we learned a lot throughout this lecture. And, we are great fun.
Great.
Really great to talk to you.
Any questions anybody has, we'll be happy. I've not told you anything that what we have done in Runaya, but that's also very interesting. This is currently I am working with Runaya, and Runaya is especially focused into ESG and technology. So we've got two verticals. One is sustainability, ESG vertical, and the second is second is technology. I mean, new age technologies. So there are projects. It will require another session if you want to
Yeah,
know about Runaya.
we'll settle another session, sir, for sure. It was
Sure.
really great to learn, and I learned a lot about industries and how they work.
Yeah.
Really had fun, sir.
So
Best
any
of luck.
questions? Any questions?
Prakhar? Think no question as of now, sir.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
great to talk to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.